My yeah, I'm really experienced.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the November 6th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Tonight on the agenda, we have 2 public hearings, 6 letters of recommendation, 2 information reports, 4 correspondence items, and 1 amended site development plan recommendation. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Rubis, Commissioner Cohn, Commissioner Broyles,
Here.
Commissioner Clayton,
Here.
Commissioner Depler, Commissioner Jackson,
Here.
Chair Beatty,
Here.
Councilmember Brost,
Here.
and Mayor Boland.
Here.
Mayor Boland's here on Zoom.
Thank you. Let's see. Can I get an approval of the minutes from the meeting for October 2nd? All right. All right. Motion to approve and seconded by Commissioner Helfrey. All those, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
I abstain.
Right. Minutes are, motion carries 601 abstention. Thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening remarks?
With Mr. Young's permission and his assistance, would he like to introduce the attorney next to him?
Members of the commission, I would just like to introduce you to Mac Miner, who's a young lawyer in our office who just started back in September. He's shadowing me this evening, and he assists our practice with the our municipal practice. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. All right. Let's hear. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. So if you want to speak on the 2 public hearings, now is not the time, but if you want to speak on any other agenda item, now is your time to speak on it. And as a friendly reminder, comments are limited to 3 minutes. And Mr. Vunish will give me a 1-minute warning. Mr. Newberry?
Mr. Chair, the first speaker card is from Mr. Naring.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. We put together a plan, or we had a contractor who put together a plan for solar for our home. And we've been moving forward on that process. We did not know that there were issues with it until Friday at 4 o'clock, which is a little late for us to try to resolve. So I guess what I'm asking for tonight is the opportunity to resolve whatever issues might be available. The process is a little cumbersome. It's difficult to try to figure out what exactly we as a homeowner in Wildwood are supposed to do when we don't really have input to know what's happening. And I don't fault anyone for that situation, but I didn't know what to do on Friday night when that was the first time that I'd heard that we were getting a denial. So I didn't have any opportunity to talk to a contractor or even find out what the issues might be. I did some phone calls today, and of course your staff is busy. I don't know where we can go with this. I've got a situation where my rebates, my incentives are going to be expiring at the end of the year. That's not something we had a choice on. Ameren made those decisions, and that's what's going to happen. If this delays more, we were on the agenda apparently a month ago. I don't know what happened with that. It continued to today. If we go longer with this situation, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's we're paying cash for our system. I'm retiring. We're trying to get some things resolved, and we're feeling some real frustration. We wanted to do this because we knew that our expenses were going to be more fixed. It changes a lot when you retire. So it's a very stressful situation for us. And I don't mean to put all that on you. But as a citizen of the city, I don't know where to go. I don't know what else to do. I'm not a corporation who can, put together everything that they do with the big developments and all that kind of thing. So I guess I'm asking, please take a look at this situation. If there's something we can do to resolve it more quickly so we can move forward, that would be wonderful. I know that your staff does a good job. I'm an employer. I know how that can be. But we normally outline expectations. And I don't feel like my expectations at this point are understood. I don't understand what the problems are based on what I've been told. So I'm making an appeal to try to see if we can resolve some things.
And I think you forgot to give your name and address. Can
I'm
you
sorry.
put that for the record, please?
Yeah, this is very new for me. My name is Doug Nearing. My wife and I live at 16541 Winterleaf Drive. So about 5 minutes from here. We've lived here in this area for about 9 years.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Cramer.
My name's Tim Cummer. I live at 2460 Etherton Road. I'm here tonight to speak against the TB development. I'm sure all of you remember me from a month ago. Nothing's changed. There's still big issues. If this is allowed, the erosion damage to my property be astronomical. And it's just too much density here. And he just refuses to change. And when he wants to build this so close to my property line, you take all my privacy. All the lots on this side of the road are primarily 1 to 3 acre lots, so you'll be disrupting the neighborhood plan, you might say. And there's just so many things about this property that should be preserved. I mean, there's oak trees that are over 100 years old. You can't replace them. I don't care if you plant the biggest possible tree you can plant. You're not replacing that tree ever. Not in our lifetime. It will never mature that size ever. And if I could show you pictures of the trees and how beautiful they are when they change colors, unbelievable. I've lived here for 25 years, and I understand you want to build, but there's no reason to build to this extent. And you guys were pretty clear last time that nobody wants rentals. And how do you do a homeowners association when there's no homeowners? That's just ludicrous. So, that's all I have to say. Like I said before, you put yourself in my shoes. Would you want this development next door to you? And I can 100% tell you your answer will be no. It's that simple. I'm not going to take any more of your time. I was pretty thorough last time. And nothing's changed. My views haven't changed. His plan hasn't changed. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ron Dieters.
Hi, I'm Ron Dieters. I live 2737 Questover Canyon, and I've lived there since 1997. And my understanding is that in Barn Nursery, the folks that have bought it are wanting to put in a greenhouse that will be illuminated all night long. When I moved out there, it was very dark, very nice, very tranquil. The Deerberg's plaza went in, and now I can see light at night, and I'm able to see my hand in front of my face, where before it was completely dark. Now I'm worried that putting a building and having it illuminated right next door to my house, it's going to be like living next to Monsanto or Bayer with a greenhouse. I don't think it's going to be good for my neighborhood. I don't think it's going to be good for my property value. And I don't think it's good for what I invested in my home. That's what I wanted to tell you guys.
Thank you for your comments.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, I do apologize. That was my error. That was regarding one of the public hearing items. I sorted the cards wrong. So
Oh, okay.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
Mr. Bosworth.
Good evening. I'm Tony Bosworth with TB Realty and Development, 2442 Etherton Road, Ward 8, which is on the side of the development. We are here tonight to request a reconsideration of our project. As you know, 2 months ago in September, there was a 3-6 negative vote for our project. Since that time, we've made numerous improvements to the plan based on the comments on that vote, in addition to other comments from staff regarding some light trespass and things like that. We have addressed every item that has been brought before this board since February of this year. We've addressed the density, we've addressed the public space issues, right-of-way dedication, light pollution from the site, which I just referred to for those 2 stub streets, the street terminus and turnaround. I'll have my other partner speak to you about the homeowners association. And we've also addressed at length regarding rental versus ownership. If I can go back a little bit about the history, this site I first brought before you in 2017 for 12 homes on 3 acres. At that time, we were stalled off for about 1.5 years and then asked to wait until the Town Center Update Committee made its decision and recommendation. Town Center Update Committee took 27 months. That's 2+ years. 3 meetings of planning and zoning and 2 additional meetings of city council. 34 months total. We waited, and then we ended up 3 months later getting voted down in 2022 for our first project. We have met every requirement of the Town Center Update Committee. We've met every requirement of the neighborhood general. We've met every requirement and recommendation of staff under the PRD. We have reduced our total site from 67 units, although it was 65 home units. We had 2 commercial units.
1 minute.
Pardon me?
1 minute.
Okay. We had 2 commercial units that were part of that project. So we went from 65 units to what you have before you tonight, which is 57 units. I'm going to hit one highlight, which I think is very important. Our project along Main Street, we have 750 feet, and my engineer will go into further detail. However, 40% of that street frontage from a public viewing standpoint is 40% of it is public viewing. The trailhead, the park, the wide entries of 70 feet to match up what was to be McBride across the street. Just I can address one comment real quickly, Mr. Cramer. Our house currently is 5 feet from the property line. Our new homes will be farther than that. I'll let the engineer, if there's any further questions from staff about it, or from council about it, but we're actually farther away than our current house is adjacent to the property.
Time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Levinson.
Good evening. Williamlevenson, President of Benton Home Builders, 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, Creve Coeur, Missouri, 63141. I just want to speak to a couple of items. I believe last time I spoke before you, there was some confusion surrounding the HOA. I think we can simplify the HOA discussion. So these are platted individual lots, just like every subdivision in Wildwood. And there are stormwater facilities that all the homes contribute to. So the HOA holds title to the stormwater facilities, and the homeowners control the HOA and vote to elect people to the HOA. In this case, we are proposing 57 homes, and they will all be owned by the same entity. So that entity will be the HOA board, or will appoint the HOA board. So it's really just a function of having individual lots with separate parcel numbers, separate addresses, and we need a common ground and an HOA to hold title to the stormwater and maintain the common ground. So I hope that helps explain things. But I do want to make a few other points that have come up during the course of our time here. At a similar project, our average age is 51 years old and our average income is $124,000. Now, those stats are based on that particular project has 28% ranch homes, and our ranch homes have an older demographic. The people that live there are older than our two-story homes. Common sense. They don't want the steps. This project has 54% ranch homes. So we expect to have a higher average age than we have in that project. And that one's 51 years old. People choose to rent for many reasons. Some of them are a change of life, death, divorce, sold the big home and want to simplify their lives, want to travel because their kids or grandkids live in other areas. They want someone else to mow the yard and take care of the mulch. Many of our residents are retirees that are not ready to move into assisted living, or they're on a fixed income and they want to match their housing expense to their income. They don't want the risk of a furnace or a new roof to repair. One more thing about the HOA. I'm going to draw your attention to the HOA letter from another community where we live in Harmony. We have 48 rental homes right next to 32 homes owned by individual homeowners. We sit on that HOA board, and the letter from the HOA board, the other two members, not us, talks about how we live in harmony and they can't tell the difference between our homes and those that are owned. So I hope that helps explain a few things, and I'm certainly available if there are any other questions.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Voles.
Well, good evening. My name is David Voles with Voles Engineering, and our address is 10849 Indian Head Industrial Boulevard, 63132. And I'm talking about the PZ 823 latitude as well, the reconsideration. What I wanted to do is talk about the progression of how we got to the plan that you have before you today. So we started off with the first plan, and the first plan had the roads oriented north-south, if you remember, and it had 3 entrances off of Main Street. And Tony's right, that plan had a little commercial element, which if you put homes there, basically had 67 units. Then we did another plan that had the same orientation, north-south, but we made them detached at the request of the staff. We made them detached along Etherton Road. That lost 3 more units, so then we were down to 64 units. We did a third plan, and this time we reoriented it so that we only had one access point, and all the homes either faced Main Street or they faced Etherton, and that took us down to 60 units. Next, we removed a unit next to the detention basin, which brought us down to 59 units. That was plan number 4. Plan number 5, and these were all based on comments and recommendations from the city and things that we were trying to make sure that we complied with everything you wanted. The next change was we eliminated any 6-unit building. So the biggest building was a 5-unit building, and it gave us more open space next to the entrances. That took us to 58 units. And that brings us to this plan right here. And on this plan, we eliminated another unit next to the detention basin. So we're down to 57 units. And let me just explain some of the features of this plan. All 2-car garages all have two spaces, full spaces in the driveways for 2 additional cars. And Tony's correct when he said that the length of our frontage is 750 feet, and 40% of that is not going to be units. 40% of that now is basically space that you're going to be able to see through, which is different than before. A plan that I forgot to tell you was there was a request for a 10-foot trail along Etherton Road. So we eliminated, we basically pushed the whole site down so that we could accommodate that. One of the big things that our plan does, 1 minute.
1 minute.
One of the big things our plan does is we're donating 38 feet of dedication along Main Street. And what that does is it allows the construction of Main Street through there. And in the end, we've reduced 10 units from the first plan that we had, which is 15%. So the current plan complies with MSD for stormwater. And we did a lot to that detention basin. It complies with the master plan for the density. It complies with the tree preservation plan. It complies with the landscape plan. It complies with the fire district. We have a letter from them. It allows the 10-foot trail. And most importantly, it allows the city to benefit for the construction of Main Street across there. So I think Tony wrote a good letter that addressed the 7 points that were brought up at the last time. I think the changes we made to the plan meet those 7 conditions. And so therefore, we're going to ask for you to reconsider it. Did I do that in 3 minutes?
I think so.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Hinman. I think.
Hello, my name's Jeff Hinman. I live at 17058 Cambry Lane. I'm a resident of Cambry for roughly 7 years and 20-year resident of Wildwood. One question I've asked some of my neighbors that have opposed this project is, have they ever gone to a Benton Homes project? You know, I've gone a couple times because I'm curious. I mean, they're going to potentially build something in our neighborhood, and I'd really like to see what kind of homes they build. So I had been to one previously and I thought it looked great. And Friday, my wife and I went through 2 of their projects and I took videos, which I have with me if you'd like to see them. And, you know, obviously the only reason I would take videos if I thought they were really nice, because I wouldn't show you terrible videos, but they're great. They're nice properties, clean, expensive cars, you know, really high-end stuff. So it was great. And I was very impressed. You know, the developers of this project obviously have a long-term interest in the success of it and the maintenance of the project, because they want to continue for a long period of time renting this, getting the rental rates that they've been getting. And so they have a vested interest in seeing to it that the projects are good. The average age is, I thought somebody had told me 56 years old. I guess it's 51, which is what Tony said. Anyway, there are a lot of people, the people that come here and are opposed to these projects are really not necessarily the majority. The silent majority doesn't bother coming. And I have a lot of my neighbors that, you know, are looking forward to getting Main Street finished. They felt comfortable with the McBride project. They feel comfortable with this project, but they just don't want to bother coming here. So you never hear from the people that are the silent majority, in my opinion. And there are other neighbors of mine that are opposed to it, but you know, the long and the short of it is I support this development. I think it'll be good. It's less dense than Cambry, and you know, the Cambry people are opposing it, but it's less dense than Cambry. And I think it'll be a nice addition to the neighborhood. We'll get the road done hopefully soon. And yeah, if you want to see the videos, let me know.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, just let me make sure.
Okay, yeah.
I do not have any additional speaker card for the public comment session.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll start our public hearings. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning these posted items. Since these requests are being presented at a public hearing, no action is planned on the items tonight, and consideration of them is to be taken no earlier than the December 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at these hearings. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, which can be found on the table at the entry to the council chambers. These guidelines are also provided on tonight's online meeting agenda. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. Those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. In addition, information on these items can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation at tonight's hearings. First, we have PZ 25-23, Solus Real Estate, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, I'll be reading the first one.
Oh.
PZ 25-23, Solus Real Estate LLC, care of Dustin Snider, 18944 St. Albans Road, Wildwood, Missouri, 63038. a request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the NU non-urban resident district to accommodate the use of the subject property, which is located on the south side of St. Albans Road, west of State Route 100, street address 18944 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County, locator number 23Y 220108, and over 5 acres in size, for the purposes of authorizing agricultural activities, specifically the research and development of products that are to be sold with the intent to increase their yields, improve their drought resistance, encourage the use of less soil additives, and promote other common goals relative to growth in food production. These activities will occur in a controlled environment, including greenhouses and other buildings or structures. Proposed use: research and development of agricultural products not intended for retail sale via an on-site sales room or within a traditional laboratory setting. This particular site is located in Ward 6. And Mr. Chair, before Mr. Newberry provides a brief slide presentation, the department would like to enter into the record the following items: the city's charter, the city's master plan, this ordinance, chapter 415 of the City of Wildwood Municipal Code, the zoning ordinance, a file that has been developed and maintained regarding this particular request and all contents contained therein. And then finally, any testimony, evidence, exhibits, or other items offered as part of tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared a brief slideshow presentation to familiarize you with the location and the current conditions and improvements at the site. The first is an aerial map showing the area of the site. The property is located on the south side of St. Albans Road. The next is a little closer view of the location, highlighted in blue. And the next are just a series of photos of the site that is currently Far Greenhouse. I'm just going to go through them. And then this photograph is standing at the entrance to the property, looking to the west. And this is looking to the east, St. Albans Road. And then this is the property across the street from the drive entrance to Far Greenhouse. And then another few views of St. Albans Road. And that concludes the department's slideshow presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, if we could invite the petitioner forward to do a short presentation.
Okay. Would the petitioner like to come forward?
Good evening. My name is Mary Fernandez. I'm the president and co-founder of Solus Agri-Sciences. We're located at the Helix Biotech Incubator at 1100 Corporate Square Drive, St. Louis, Missouri 63132. I'm joined today by Pat Belrose, longtime former owner and operator of Far Greenhouse and current Solus team member, as well as by Dustin Snider, Solus's CFO/COO. We appreciate the opportunity to address the purpose of the granting of this conditional use permit under the newly proposed conditional use of agricultural research activities. And we hope to allay any concerns that the commission, the city, and the residents have related to that conditional use. First off, just a little bit about what we do at Solus Agri-Sciences. In short, Solus is a one-of-a-kind company that provides product design and R&D services to help plant science companies and researchers accelerate the pace of their scientific discovery and commercialization. Our clients are predominantly small, early-stage startup companies. Much of the work we do occurs in the labs and offices we have at the Biotech Incubator in Creve Coeur. But as you might imagine, given our work with plants, this requires a certain amount of plant growth-related activities in controlled environments like plant growth chambers and greenhouses. And after experiencing some bottlenecks in the greenhouse space with our facilities at the Donald Danforth Plant Science Center, which is located very near our labs and offices in the Creve Coeur area, we found a solution with the facilities already in place at FAR Greenhouse. So Solus acquired the property at FAR in December of 2022, and that property includes over 55,000 square feet of greenhouse space, pre-existing greenhouse space. And since December of 2022, we have upgraded one set of greenhouses, about 5,000 square feet, to R&D use. In addition, the legacy horticulture operations have continued to operate along the way, although we did wind down the garden center at the end of September. And aside from a few R&D projects underway in that R&D greenhouse, our houses are currently almost completely full of poinsettias to serve our customers' needs for the upcoming holiday season. I want to give the floor now to Pat Belrose to briefly talk about FAR's longstanding position within the community and the partnership we have entered into at FAR.
My name is Pat Belrose, and I live at 2704 Far Lane, Wildwood, Missouri. Just a little background on Far Greenhouse. It was started in 1950 by my in-laws, Dorothy and Leonard Farr. I met Mary, the oldest daughter, at the University of Missouri, where we were both studying horticulture and found we had a few other things in common. Mary and I graduated from the university in spring of 1969. I always like to point out that there were only 2 women that year that got a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture, and Mary was one of them. We got married in 1970, and a year later, we joined the business. The business grew from 15,000 square feet of greenhouse to now is over 55,000 square feet of greenhouse. In 2022, we put the business up for sale, and Solus AgriScience took possession in December 1 of 2022. I have asked myself several times, why would this high-tech company want to buy FAR Greenhouse? Over the last 12 months, the answer they kept giving me is because FAR Greenhouse role in sustainable horticulture. Over my professional career, I have given many presentations to horticulture professionals on ways to use less chemicals in the commercial production of plants. FAR is known for its very sustainable growing media, the soil we grow plants in, which contains no peat moss. Peat moss is strip mined just like coal, and it's always been my goal to get away from using it. For our insects and disease control, we use all our management tools we can to control pests instead of just relying on chemicals. We control the environment, spacing, how we water, and many of the other practices. Our carbon footprint to grow plants is way less than most conventional greenhouses. The purpose of Solus research is to increase sustainable practices in all of agriculture. Since 1990, agriculture has made many major changes in how it grows and produces crops. The biggest of these changes was called no-till farming. While this was a huge advance in making our soils better, it caused a dramatic need to change how plants would be grown in a more sustainable way. Like our neighbors down the road who are growing corn and soybeans, Solus will be growing these crops, trying to find out how to do it in a more sustainable way. The future of agriculture must rely on less synthetic fertilizers to grow crops and to use less chemicals to control pests in those crops. To accomplish this will take a substantial amount of research to make sure the future of the world's food supply is truly sustainable so that our great-grandchildren can have a secure food source. I hope that I and Wildwood will be part of this amazing adventure.
And I just want to make a couple more comments on the
name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, Dustin Snider. I'm the CFO, COO of Solus AgriSciences. Just a couple of comments related specifically to some of the concerns that we've heard. First of all, as it's been said before, we're not putting any labs on the site. That's never been our plan. It's not our intention, and it's not something that we're going to do. Second, no cannabis on site. We've heard a lot of rumors that we're going to convert the facility to the production of cannabis. That's not our intention. It's not our plan. In full transparency, FAR has for a number of years grown industrial hemp. very different from cannabis under the regulation of the USDA, but very separate. Again, no cannabis whatsoever. Also, we're subject to a number of regulations, and it's important to note that that the adherence to the strict standards imposed upon us by our clients, as well as the regulatory agencies that actually regulate us. Based upon the nature of our work, there's a high level of control needed to ensure that we can get the outcome, data, results, and that we need from all of our tests. This naturally lends itself to a much higher level of control and safety than would be the case with typical agricultural activities. We've sought the counsel of external experts to ensure that our standards around safety and control are exceeding any regulations and prevailing standards that are in place. Finally, I just say the facilities on site haven't materially changed, and we don't expect them to materially change in the future. We came to the site fully expecting to utilize it for the conditional uses that it was there and had in place for agriculture and plant nursery. And that's largely what we're doing. And it's what we're going to continue to do. The greenhouses there are set off from the road. It's our intent to keep it that way. To the extent we make any changes to those, the footprint we don't expect to materially change. So a lot of that will be business as usual, and shouldn't, for in a lot of instances, look any different than it has since really 1952. So, all right.
So just to reiterate, for any outside observer, for all intents and purposes, the site's going to look pretty much the same as it does right now as you drive past St. Albans Road. I just want to also be very transparent and say that we are a small company and we want to be as transparent as possible with what we're doing. We feel very strongly about the positive impact that our work has and will have on the future of food and our food system and our environment. Even though we're small, we have clients from across the country and also international clients that work with us because they believe in our mission. So I hope that, the city of Wildwood will partner with us on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just so if there's a question, petitioners are allowed up to 15 minutes to do their presentation. Collectively, this group did it in about 11 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vernich. Do we have any speaker cards, Mr. Newberry?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The first speaker card is from Mr. Null.
Well, my name is David Null. I'm at 2709 Questover Canyon. I'm at the property on the direct southern border with Solus. I've been there for 31 years, and my kids have worked with Pat, so he's been in the neighborhood for quite a while. I guess I have 2-bedroom windows that face that property, and my primary concern has to do with the lighting. I almost understood that you weren't changing any of the lighting. Is that correct? Potentially. Well, I after the last meeting, I went on the Wildwood website and came up with the ordinance for 415-450 for outdoor lighting requirements. And the copy I have here is dated October 3rd. I also noticed that there's a agenda item today to review that document. I'm curious as to how that document is going to be enforced and what the remedies are if it's not in compliance. So I'm looking for some additional information on that.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ms. Hinson.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Hinson, a very proud Wildwood resident, and I lived on Questover Canyon Drive. For sake of privacy, I'll omit my address number, but you guys can look that up later. All right. You may think these people already live next to a greenhouse. Why is this one any different? FAR was neighborly. They weren't a faceless corporate identity. They were invited to weddings, Tori and Kyle's. They brought packages over when they were dropped off at the wrong house. They were neighbors. Already, Solus has come in with a veil of secrecy. Never once have they tried to talk to us. Maybe we wouldn't be here if they had. Instead, they go behind our backs to get an ordinance passed. One we didn't even know was happening, so we could not comment. Otherwise, we would have been here. We learned possible plans of clear cutting and construction from various vendors, quoting jobs for Solus, a direct contradiction to what they said tonight. And now we are here, wrapped in worry for our Wildwood. We are a vulnerable neighborhood. Our water source is independent wells. The water we drink and shower in is not tested daily, like county and city addresses. We depend on our neighbors to manage waste and chemicals properly. Why would a corporation care if they don't have to drink the water around them? Don't let the promise of scientific research hide the fact that Solus is a business hoping to cash in on our land. Their address isn't in Wildwood. They are on Corporate Square Drive in the city. Let's not forget other corporations in this country who have contaminated towns with cancer-causing toxins. DuPont, Parkersburg, West Virginia. PG&E, Hinckley, California. And Monsanto in Anniston, Alabama. Wildwood does not have to be on that list. You have the power to mandate soil and water testing, the power to manage runoff and erosion concerns. If you are unfamiliar with this property, it has a gentle slope emptying into Wild Horse Creek. Mine is the same, and come any hard rain, we witness that runoff firsthand. You have the power to limit round-the-clock lighting that would keep our neighborhood in perpetual dawn, something John Hopkins has linked to numerous health conditions. Wildwood Code says lighting be turned off an hour close of business, but on their website, Solus lists round-the-clock plant care. Round-the-clock plant care. So if it never closes, will the lights always be on? You have the power to limit the buzz of industrial fans and HVAC equipment needed to run this greenhouse. You have the power to keep our community one we love. We need you, so please help us.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Ms. Gerler.
Good evening. My name is Julie Gerler. I'm at 19112 St. Albans Road. Bars was the quintessential mom and pop local shop when it was started decades ago. It quite literally grew out of the backyard into a successful small business that served the local community. But that has changed since Solus took control. Solus Agri-Sciences no longer serves the local community. They cease sales to the local residents and are no longer a local business. You heard her speak and say she has international clients. That doesn't sound local to me. They now find themselves trying to operate a commercially driven business outside the proper zoning district for that purpose. The residents of Wildwood do not want sprawling businesses encroaching on the serenity of Wildwood. We live in Wildwood particularly because it is a country, rural area within suburban sprawl, and that's how we want it. With every business expansion outside of the proper zoning district, this board allows the continual erosion of what makes Wildwood a desirable place to live within St. Louis County. Furthermore, it undermines the intention, foresight, and protection the city states. Statutes were designed to provide its residents. I sincerely ask you to vote against the expansion of Solus. They can operate in the proper districts elsewhere. I would also like to point out that Mr. Snider said that they have no current intention or current plans to allow marijuana growing or other things to be changed. Notice he did not say they will not do those things. He said no current intention.
1 minute.
As pulled from present day Wildwood on Wildwood's website, it says the city created a planning process for all aspects of its government to ensure that its assets would be retained. So the future growth, development, and improvements would be preserved with the unique character of the community. These 5 characteristics include, and were limited to on the website, abundant open space, an estate lifestyle, a unique topography, native woodland, and rural roadways. That is where we live in Wildwood, where this business is located. If we continue to let business move into this area, those will be eliminated. An interactive public engagement process to keep people involved in their governance is what City of Wildwood's website says this process should be. The people of our neighborhood are speaking. We do not want this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is for Mr. Frank.
Y'all, Gary Frank, 2716 Questover, right on the other side of the road. You know, we obviously live in pretty much a darkness, and I get that it's 2023. We're not going to avoid the dark forever, right? I'm not one of those people like, you guys can't build this, but this is a very special piece of property, specifically where it is. It's dark. You know, when you listen to, not that I'm going to a lot of these city council meetings, but the last couple ones where, hey, we're worried about cutting down a couple of trees. We're worried about the process for the next few years where we want to maintain what we have in Wildwood. And I know that there are specific spots where this is going to be great. We want to expand and we want to look forward to the future, tax dollars, businesses, opportunities. I just don't think this is the right thing. We're so used to this nice mom and pop greenhouse, as so often has been said for the last many years, where you grow up with these relationships, and we don't have those relationships. Not that means that we can't have those relationships with these people, but when you give that opportunity and you give, you know, certain loopholes and they take advantage of them and maybe a way that was not meant to be taken advantage of, to where we just allow that, well, then that's what makes it difficult for us to live next to. And we're so used to, you know, they changed one of the LED bulbs on the street light by one of the main gas, and that's the brightest light that I see driving down St. Albans Road on the way into Questover, because it's pretty dark out there during the time. During the day, it's great. It's fine. At night, we obviously see a lot of deer. And then even on the main road on Manchester, it's as dark as can be. Driving home at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., whatever it may be, this time of the year, we see all the deer and those issues. And, you know, those are some of the things that we're going to run into as well with some of the wildlife. And, you know, obviously in this area specifically, as has been mentioned, so close to the creek, you know, it's a health concern with some of these things. And maybe that's not going to be a problem. That's great. I really hope that that's the case if that were to go through. But it's always something you see, because, you know, when we have the well water, you know, as is mentioned, we're not getting those automatic tests. So, you know, when you see all these stories that we end up talking about,
1 minute,
they test the well water after this time and such, and then how much it takes to get all this PFAS out of, you know, we had that issue when I lived in Michigan for 4 years, and that was, you know, all these people in the well water, and then it's found years later, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Well, we can do something about it right now. And that's not necessarily to be said that this is going to cause that issue, but that's the issue that we feel, where it's light. We want safety in that regard. And also, we just like, you know, it's not just, hey, we just like our little darkness, our nice area. That's where we like, you know, Wildwood. When you look at it on the first two things, walking in the city, it says 2024, you know, just to keep, it almost says, it's like, keep Wildwood. And that's kind of what we have. And while we can find ways to modernize and continue to improve, I think we can also find ways to continue to make the people that you hear enjoy living here, continue that for many, many years to come.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Mr. Atia.
Hi, my name is Joe Attia. I'm at I own property at 19100 St. Albans Road, and it's 24 acres. Just big concern is, as been said by the numerous neighbors, that the traffic issues, lighting issues, the issue it may have on the wild animals. I treasure the land. I farm it. So oftentimes when we have heavy rains, I get a lot of debris down from upstream, and nothing personal against Favre Nursery, but a lot of the garbage, the plastic containers, a lot of the some of the metals, a lot of the growing materials ends up damming up right on my property in Wild Horse Creek. And if that alone is unmanaged by a larger corporation, that could have devastating effects downstream of me as well. If anybody ever had a concern, the amount of pressure that Wild Horse Creek generates will move an entire tree. You can drive over the viaduct that goes right over Wild Horse Creek adjacent to my property, and it's right on St. Albans Road, and the trees literally bash into the overpass there, and it's eroding the material. But all that material that comes off from upstream comes down, and if a corporation is not held responsible for maintaining what waste is allowed to fall into the creek, severe jeopardy could be potential downstream. I did work at an FBO in Waukegan, Illinois, and they had a minor fuel leak, and fuel was found all the way down to the Lake Michigan opening from Waukegan.
Oh, 1 minute.
So just extreme concern, obviously, from the neighbors that will it be monitored as far as the chemical output that a corporation puts in. Another big concern I have is avid wildlife lover and hunter. We have a very large population of deer and many other critters that, if they are allowed to do 24-hour lighting, would disappear. The deer will not be around. The animals will not be around. 24-hour lighting will disrupt the environment, the natural environment of all things for that area. It's in a 5-mile radius, and it's documented. It's proven. If 24-hour lighting is allowed, a 5-mile radius around that area will be affected, will affect the wildlife community. So just a consideration.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Witzig.
Victoria Witzig. We are representing the owners of the properties at 27 St. Albans East Drive, Glencoe, Missouri, as well as the property 2730 Far Lane, Glencoe, Missouri. If you guys are not aware of this, this is the property directly next to the mum field, as well as the property directly behind Far Greenhouse Nursery. My husband and I and our in-laws have future plans to build on this property. This current site that we are looking at overlooks the greenhouses as it stands today. If there were to be excessive lighting going forward, which we can or cannot guarantee, as we've learned earlier this evening, then we're going to have a permanent nightlight outside of our bedroom window. Who's going to want that? That's going to affect our plans to build, as well as that's going to affect our plans to ever resell the value or resell the property, because no one else is ever going to want to build there. In addition, that's also going to affect our property value as well, having all of this going on next door to us. In addition, we have the noise pollution that's going to be happening from all of this going on. That's, last meeting we were concerned about trees and solar panels in the heart of Wildwood, and now we're not going to be concerned about all of this 24-hour lighting, noise pollution, and everything else that's going to be happening in the future. Why is this different? As some of you guys saw this evening, we have a 1-month-old child as well with us this evening. She's going to be growing up on this property. How are we going to know what effects the research and development this company is going to be doing is going to have effect on our child as well as any other children in this area? If this permit's passed, we're going to, we also learned this evening that we don't know if there's any future plans for marijuana or anything else going on. So how is our properties, again, that surround this greenhouse going to be affected with crime, any vandalism, or any other riffraff going on in the area? We're asking you, the city of Wildwood, to help us, the citizens, protect our area and keep the city of Wildwood wild. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker card is from Ms. Donaldson.
Hi, I'm Debbie Donaldson. I live at 17016 Canberry Lane. I didn't come here tonight thinking I would be talking about this endeavor, but I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight if I didn't. I grew up in quintessential small town America. I grew up in a little town named Whitehall, Michigan, and the next town over is Montague, Michigan. They are located on White Lake, which we also that empties into Lake Michigan. So I could be on the sand dunes literally within 5 minutes. It was paradise. When I hear these residents speak, I'm picturing where I grew up. DuPont, Hooker Chemical, and the tannery polluted our groundwater with chemicals. It wasn't discovered for many, many years. White Lake was on the cover of Life magazine, it's my understanding, in the 1950s. It was declared the most beautiful lake in the nation, and it was. We couldn't swim in it. We couldn't eat fish out of it. It was a hazard, terrible hazard. They have now capped the leaking in the lake, but people still won't go in it. And most people won't eat fish out of it. It was detrimental because as soon as it was discovered, Hooker and DuPont pulled out. Those toxic sites are still sitting there in Montague. They are not taken care of. They have not done their part to clean it up. When I hear this, it gives me cause for pause. Please consider this proposal. I think business has the right to come to Wildwood if they do it properly. I worry when I hear this because of my experience. And I promise you, I have lost so many friends, so many family members from cancer, and these are weird cancers. I have a daughter who's an ER doctor, and when I tell her the cancers, she's like, oh my God, Mom, that's not the norm. I have a good friend who's involved in chemotherapy. That's not the norm.
1 minute.
Once this gets in the water system, whether it's a creek, the groundwater, whatever, it's very ugly. So I love the city of Austin, their mantra, keep Austin weird. Please keep Wildwood wild. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any more speaker cards regarding this hearing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. And Commissioner Helfrey.
Okay, so I guess I have some questions that I was hoping that since this is a public hearing, that before our next meeting, that maybe we could have some answers. One of the things I've read, listened to all of the people that were here tonight, and when I read a lot of these things that were sent in, one of the concerns that keeps coming up again and again is the lighting. And so I know that we have lighting regulations in Wildwood, but the concern is that these greenhouses are lit from the inside so that it's lit up all night long. And so I'd like that addressed. Is there a time that we will make them turn off the lights in the greenhouses and so that they cannot, disturb the night sky? I know that this is I know this Far Greenhouses has been here for a while, but I have to admit, I'm a little confused about the terms research and development and all of these things. So I guess my next question would be to how do we address the any chemicals that are used or any waste runoff into the Wild Horse Creek water and by extension into people's wells, because we already have a problem with erosion. We have an erosion task force. And so I'd like to know how we can address possible contamination. We already are having to deal with some other properties in Wildwood. I'd like to not add to that. One of the things that someone mentioned was traffic. And so I'd like to know how we address that. If this is a commercial business, what kind of vehicles do they plan on having coming in and out of this? You know, are they going to have trucks? Are they just going to have regular cars? Is there going to be 30 cars or 2 cars? And one of the other things that was brought up was 24-hour plant care. And so a concern is the noise issue. So 24 plant care, I have fruit trees that I bring in my house every winter, and I just hooked up all my grow lights over the fruit trees. That's 24-hour care to me. You know, I water them once a couple days. But so when they say 24-hour plant care, is that somebody working in the greenhouses with the lights on and fans blowing? I think we had a problem with noise from a fish place before. So I'd like to avoid all of those things. So if we could have direct answers to those questions before the next meeting, I would be grateful. And the last thing is myself, I'm speaking for myself. I kind of don't understand the research and development part of it. And so I'd like that explained a little bit more, because when the gentleman who owned FAR, Mr. Belrose, he mentioned that they were doing sustainable stuff, and the idea was to get away from chemicals. And so are they using chemicals here, and how does that affect the groundwater? So those are all my questions that I'd like answers for when they come back in front of us. Thank you, Mr. Lunich.
Commissioner Helfrey, we'll do our very best to answer all of those questions. We'll coordinate some of the responses with the petitioner, because obviously the department is learning about this as well. We've spent some time with the petitioners understanding their business model, but where they think they are headed relative to this particular property, et cetera. But some of your questions need their care, not ours. I will just say that we do have outdoor lighting requirements. We've had those now for 20 plus years. The intent of the requirements when established were, for the most part, were 3-pronged. To first and foremost address nuisance glare that's caused by lighting, to avoid light trespass, and to preserve the dark sky. And so from those 3 prongs or 3 components, for the most part, we do our best. It's certainly an issue that we're dealing with our neighbors. Chesterfield, Ellisville, and Eureka do not have outdoor lighting requirements. So a lot of the night sky is not necessarily caused by wildwood, but our neighbors who don't value it as much as we do. But we'll get you your answers, ma'am.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
There, got it. You know, one common theme that I heard of the the citizens of Wildwood was we had a really great relationship with FAR. Do you ever broker like a meeting between the 2 parties? Because we're transitioning to a new neighbor with new ownership. It might alleviate some of these concerns, or there may be an impasse. And if there's an impasse after that, do you ever do that?
Well, as you know, most recently with the Crestview project, there is a lot of citizen feedback at the public hearing. We encourage McBride Homes to meet with the residents that spoke and anyone else that would be interested. Ultimately, that was coordinated by Council Member Joe Garitano. So certainly we can do our very best to get the groups together. They certainly can use our city hall as a meeting place, neutral site, so to speak, and just for the most part, let the petitioner maybe explain in more detail versus here at a public hearing their business, and then certainly to hear the concerns and respond to them one-on-one. But we have a month plus of time to arrange that, and we certainly be glad if there's interest on both parties.
Well, I would finish and say I 100% agree with Councilperson Helfrey and her concerns, and I've heard both sides, and I'm thinking if you got them together, maybe some things are real, perceived, and maybe there'll be an impasse on certain things, right, in the future. 2 cents.
Well, from the department's perspective, clearly its major concern, first and foremost, is always groundwater in the aquifer. Without a pure source of potable water for our residents in the rural area, they can't live there. And so anything that would threaten that would certainly not pass muster with the Department of Planning. And then everything kind of builds from there. Wastewater, erosion, Wild Horse Creek, the main channel. and then obviously outdoor lighting.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
You're welcome, sir.
Mayor Bullen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm gonna echo just a few things, I guess, that have been mentioned by Commissioner Helfrey, but I'm going to add to it. I think there are 4 things that need to be addressed in the department's report when it comes back to the commission relative to this, and I've listed these in relative order of priority. Number 1, the words that were used about not in our plans at this time relative to marijuana. We, as a city, I believe, authorize only that type of production in our industrial zone, of which this is not part of, but I would want confirmation of that. And I would also like confirmation on a more specific level from the applicant, not only as to that issue, but as to anything else that they may be doing, the way they're going to be doing it, the potential for runoff, the potential for any other ecological impact, all these types of things as to what their plan is. They must have a plan or they wouldn't be at this point. And so I think it's important for our residents in this commission to know exactly what that plan is, line by line, and specifically when it's going to be done, what its purpose is, what its impact could be, and what its impact will be in a very precise way. So that's number 1. Number 2, lighting. And that's been discussed. I would reiterate that. And number 3, runoff ecological generally, not only as to the plan, as to their business, but also as to any traffic and so on and so forth. And then last, traffic. So those are the 4 things that I would ask the department look at very carefully when it comes back to the commission with a report on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
I number 5 would be the noise. He was much more succinct than I was.
If there are no further questions or comments from the commission, the department will respectfully request a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Broyles, seconded by Commissioner Helfrey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? All right, that public hearing is now closed. Thank you. All right, let's hear. Next on the agenda, PZ 20-23. Mr. Newberry.
PZ 20-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040. A request to review and consider the possible addition of a new section to the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, Chapter 415.400, sign regulations general, Section G, wayfinding signs, which would allow the placement of these types of representations upon publicly held lands, rights of way, and or easements, with such being limited to locations abutting arterial roadways as defined by the master plan's transportation element, wards 1, 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight an overview of a possible change to the city sign regulations relative to wayfinding types. Wayfinding types for many people are those that are found in most commercial areas across the country, particularly along main streets or major commercial locations in small towns to medium-sized towns, and even now larger cities. The City of Wildwood, with its town center, has reviewed this particular matter in the past. Ultimately, consensus could not be reached, but in each instance, there were examples that were developed that the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council considered. Those examples are provided as part of the overview that has been developed by the department for tonight's discussion. It's important to note that in town center, there are particular properties that do not have visibility from some of the major arterial roadways. Mr. Lee, our city administrator, formerly our economic development manager, and I have met with several of them. And from their perspective, our sign regulations do not allow them to have that visibility on the major arterials, but wayfinding signs under the guidance and control of the city may be the solution. So tonight, the department is seeking feedback if this is something that the commission would like the department to explore, and if not, then therefore it would write a recommendation that says, again, the timing isn't right. But again, remember, we've looked at this before. There have been some positives come out of that relative to how we treat signs in town center now. And the department would like to proceed and at least explore this and come back with some thoughts to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. And Commissioner Helfrey.
Mr. Vinich, I just have a really quick question about these signs. When I was reading this, you were referring to that business that was behind the post office. So, and when I looked at the samples of the wayfinding signs, they said like town center, city hall, theater, hotel. How would you, what would the wording be, or how would you use this sign to say that business is behind there? Would it be a business specific sign that said, you know, Mike's store is back there, or how would that work?
Well, just on a preliminary basis, it could be approached in two ways. The first would be as a general acknowledgement, retail, and have an arrow pointing back there so that the business can use that as an identifier. There's a wayfinding sign at East Avenue and Manchester Road. It shows the direction of retail. The other approach, and this is something that needs to be explored with the city attorney before the commission is presented a approach, and that would be the city could lease space on a sign within the public right of way, thereby creating revenue from it, but also managing the content, so to speak, the size, not so much what it says, but the size, and then the appearance as well.
Similar to what
is
they
a
do
little
on
more
the
difficult
interstates.
to address, but from the perspective of the department, we could certainly do general categories, and that's for the most part where we've always kind of recommended that this approach would be. And as you know, it's out on Route 100. We have wayfinding signs there, and for the most part, I think they've been successful in getting people to our town center and the major attractions located there.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did just want to mention on this matter with the wayfinder signs, there is also a concept that we have discussed but not really pushed forward too much, but potentially creating the town center into multiple districts, allowing to create unique identities amongst the actual center of town center where City Hall is located, but also areas on Route 66 to really celebrate the historical significance. Other cities of scale and at large scale have seen this be very successful in the past. There could be additional signage, obviously talking with the city attorney, if that could be rented out. I don't necessarily know if that is possible, but we'll definitely consult with the city attorney. But the aspect of creating a multiple districts within the town center could create even more character and also help promote economic development. So any other questions, I'd be more than happy to address that more with the research I've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, the department is respectfully requesting if there are no public comments, an authorization to proceed forward and at least explore the topic and answer the questions that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say, at this point, I can't even remember the name of her business that was behind the post office, but I know going in there a few times, she lamented the fact that if you didn't know she was there, you weren't going to find her.
Miller House.
Miller, yes, thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
Are you looking for a motion to say, please investigate this?
I would prefer a motion if possible, just to explore the topic and bring back, for the most part, a recommendation regarding wayfinding signs in terms of what their context is, and also potential district names. And we can work from there and see where we go.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to go forward with that.
All right, so motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Clayton. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Do we need to close the public hearing now? I guess.
Yes.
All right. So, all right. Motion to close the hearing by Commissioner Helfrey, Seconded by Commissioner Clayton. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Hearing is now closed. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, Mr. Vunich, PZ 8-23.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, Mr. Young, can we just do the titles?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
PZ 8-23 latitude N38 TB Realty in Benton Homes, 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, St. Louis, Missouri, and PZ 8A-23 latitude N38 TB Realty in Benton Homes, 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, St. Louis, Missouri, 63141.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, tonight the department has prepared for your consideration a reconsideration request regarding the two titles and items relating to those two titles that are before you for consideration. As you'll recall, at the September 2023 meeting of the commission, the department presented a favorable recommendation regarding these particular request and project. And at that time, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended against the project by a vote of 3-6. Without a majority in favor of the change in zoning and the application of the overlay district, it failed. Tonight, the petitioner, as discussed in public comment, would respectfully request the reconsideration of the proposal. To have a reconsideration of the proposal, one of the members of the commission voting in majority, that being one of the 6, would have to make the motion. Those 6 that voted in the majority are Commissioner Helfrey, Commissioner Rubis, Commissioner Broyles, Commissioner Clayton, Commissioner Deppler, and then finally Commissioner Jackson. If a motion to reconsider is favorably acted upon, then the department will go over the changes to the plan that are summarized in the reconsideration request as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Is there a motion to reconsider? Commissioner Broyles? Does that need a second?
Yes.
Is there? And does the second need to be?
No.
It does not. Okay.
So you don't require a second?
No, it requires a second, but the second does not have to be someone who voted in the majority. And so Councilman Brost is going to second that. And then does that
a voice vote would be
all right? And then vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
All right. And any abstain? All right. So the motion carries, let's see here, 6-1. All right.
Mr. Chair, relative to the revised plan that's been submitted as part of the reconsideration request, the department did highlight the changes that it felt were significant and would be something that the commission would like to, would need to know and therefore consider as part of its future action. The changes for the most part are as follows. As mentioned during public comment, one of the lots and an additional dwelling have been removed from the site. With that elimination, the density has been obviously decreased. Additionally, this particular lot, which is in closest proximity to the city's village green, is now shown as public space, and there are amenities associated with that public space. Additionally, the 2 streets that terminate at the southern boundary of the subject site and next to existing residential development, those have now been modified so as to provide turnaround capabilities. Along with that, the design of those T turnarounds have been submitted to the fire marshal with Metro West Fire Protection District, and the fire marshal has written a favorable letter regarding the review. The streets also will be screened so as light trespass is not problematic. Again, when cars drive down those 2 streets to the south, concern was voiced that the lights from the vehicles would trespass across the imaginary boundary line and cause problems for that existing residential community. Again, these will now be screened. And then finally, a preliminary landscape plan has been submitted in conjunction with the reconsideration request. That preliminary landscape plan indicates a minimum level of compliance to the city's requirements at this time. Those are the major changes. The department would only add in regards to the revised plan in that, or from the perspective of the department, and a key element in its support of the project has been the density and appearance of the units along Etherton Road and Main Street. Those are the two principal streets, or primary streets, relative to town center. And in each instance, changes have been incorporated to ensure that the character of those two streets comply to a high level to the town center plan. As was mentioned, the units along Etherton Road are single-family detached on individual lots and mirror what was approved and developed in Main Street Crossing. And those now along Main Street are in clusters of less than 6 units, 5 or less. They step down to address a kind of character and offset in terms of appearance. And again, now I believe are at 17 at one time, a substantially greater number. In both instances, at Etherton Road and future Main Street and next to Village Green, we have a substantial green space area for public purposes. And so from the perspective of the department, those two key elements favor consideration of this particular set of proposals favorably. If there are any questions regarding the department's reconsideration request or any of the information previously provided, I'd be glad to try to answer them at this time. And as noted in the reconsideration request report, we did not prepare the draft letter of recommendation, not knowing how the commission would respond to the reconsideration request, but we would intend to have something prepared for the December meeting. Thank you. December. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I guess one question I had is with McBride deciding to pull the plug on their subdivision, how does that affect Main Street?
Well, certainly it has a major impact. And from the department's perspective, in three major ways. First, as part of the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to City Council, McBride was to release all rights as owners of property to the parcel of ground where Crestview Drive is located. Now, instead of one entity releasing those rights, we will be dealing with 7 property owners. Secondly, they were to dedicate a minimum of 10 feet of their land area for future Main Street, a 70-foot wide right-of-way. And then finally, they were going to contribute traffic generation assessment fees and at one point, an additional amount of money for the construction of the street. Those things are now not in play, but in a recent meeting with the developer, the dedication of the right-of-way along the 3 properties that are part of this subject set of requests will allow for a street to be built. It will not be like Main Street in terms of its look and function as in Main Street Crossing or here in downtown town center, but it would allow a connection to be made. And then as development were to occur in the future, could be managed then to create the town center template that we would prefer for Main Street.
So you're thinking some sort of interim Main Street?
Yes, I think that's the best we can offer at this stage without the support of the 8 property owners on the north side of existing Crestview Drive.
Do you think, do you have any sort of gauge on the support of the owners on the north side of the street?
Well, at least from one source, they feel that the city's the reason McBride Homes is not proceeding forward and now they're back at square one with their property. So I'm anticipating some level of animosity.
Mhm. All right, thank you. Commissioner Broyles?
Mrs. Broyles, could you use your microphone? I apologize.
Sorry, excuse me. Mr. Vunich, TB Realty and Benton Homes, can we have that information ahead of more time to review that in December? We usually receive the information on a Friday, and since this meeting is on Mondays, it doesn't give us a lot of time to assess what that is and have our questions available to you.
Well, certainly, I think the petitioners would prefer to get a favorable recommendation instead of rush the project through the process. So if the commission needs more time, we'll certainly do our best. We have a favorable report written. The report does not reflect the changes that are now before you relative to the revised plan. We can certainly incorporate those into that and get the report out a minimum of week, if not 2 weeks ahead of time, so you can have that additional number of days to review it and develop your questions.
Also, it would be important to see the pictures of what we have. That would be helpful. Just having something written is not as good as a picture as well. We need both.
Well, certainly you have the colorized plan that Voles Engineering provided. We have the more working drawings that Voles Engineering provided, which are the black and white, two-dimensional. And if the commission would like, we can go over and take photographs of the projects in St. Charles County the developer has done that are similar to what is being proposed here in the city of Wildwood. We can provide those as well.
I'm not so sure that I personally need that. I need what they have on that spot of land. And I've listened to what has been said by, excuse me, I'm reading who you are, and I know who you are, but TB Realty and Bennett Homes. I just need.
And certainly we can, Mr. Newberry, Ms. Ripito, and I can do more with the availability of technology to do some analysis along the boundary lines. Mr. Cramer spoke tonight, as well as at the last meeting in September, and expressed concerns. We can do some videos. We can do photographs from that particular perspective. What I will emphasize again to the commission members is the department recognizes this project is a change. It's not the 3-acre standard lots that, for the most part, people have become accustomed to because they were there prior to new development and are there now. But I will state this is consistent with the town center plan, and the town center update team spent 18 plus months looking at this particular area specifically, not that entire 18 months, and identified it as a neighborhood general area that would have higher density housing. That is why the department has a favorable recommendation. Our intent is to honor the plans as developed by our volunteers, adopted by our Planning and Zoning Commission, and ultimately endorsed and ratified by City Council.
I indeed served on that committee for 18
I know,
months. So I am very well aware of the property. That's really not the issue. It's what we want to put on it. And if you've made new plans, and I honor what
My statement was not meant to criticize anyone. It's just a simple fact that I recognize that it's a change, and change is difficult, particularly from a land use perspective. You're used to something and it's going to change. But we've spent the past 27 years talking about town center and the need to develop Main Street, the need to bring more households in to support our businesses. And there's a lot of positives that come with that. And no one in an existing development approved by the city of Wildwood and town center can say that we told them it was going to be 3-acre lots with one home on each 3-acre lots. We've had this plan in place since pretty much day one when we started our master plan.
And I am well aware of all of that. And it's not, my comments are not pointed at the planning department at all. It's that I just would like to make a more wiser decision when I see what's there on the pictures.
Well, we've made the commitment, we being the Department of Planning and the three of us, Ms. Ripito, Mr. Newberry, and I, we'll have the report out a minimum of a week in advance, if not 2 weeks in advance, with the revisions that have been discussed as part of the reconsideration request, and then provide some additional information, photographs, things along those lines from the site, so you can understand the dynamics as we relate them to the components in the recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor Boland.
Yes, I think Mr. Vintage did a terrific job of summarizing our town center and as an advocate of 3-acre minimums, where they go and where they don't go, and which, you know, has long been the case. But that said, my question is there any action that the department is looking for from the commission, or given the vote to reconsider, that's it, and you're going to come back with a you know, a recommendation that's been revised, just so we can know what we need to do here, if anything? That's my question.
Mr. Mayor, that's a very good question. We seldom do reconsiderations, and so this is kind of new ground of late. And so from the department's perspective, it was my intent to revise the department's favorable recommendation with the new information and present a favorable recommendation at the December meeting. And if that is not what the commission would like to see, then I would request a motion for better direction.
Commissioner Help.
No.
Yeah, I'll come back to you. Commissioner Helfrey.
Hi, Mr. Vintage. So, first of all, thank you for answering all of our questions so patiently, especially mine. I will say that I have concerns as relative to some of the things that the close by residents said, and I also recognize that this is part of town center. So if we're going to go ahead and you're going to put this package together again for us with a letter of recommendation, my request would be that you give us the most current changes, because I mean, I'm a little confused, not a lot, but a little bit confused on some of these things. I'd also request that town center update map that we have, the color coded one, I would request that as well, so that when we look at this packet, we can see how this fits into the overall thing. And then as far as these are rear facing garages, is that what I'm seeing on this? These are rear facing garages, and they're all 2-car garages.
Correct.
And then this, the one gentleman, and I apologize that I don't recall your name, where he's concerned about the runoff. And I want to know what we can do to preemptively keep that from happening. Not we, the builder, what they can do to preemptively not let that happen, not let a runoff or erosion happen to the next door neighbor. And then I'd also like to know what we're using to screen the car lights. What are they using? Are they using plants? Are they using fencing? Are they using, I don't know, a screen? I don't know. Those are my big questions right now. So when you come back to it, when we do this, the other question I would have is a procedural one, I guess. When it comes back to us in December, will that be essentially then the first go round, or will that be the final one that goes to the city council? Because really, we've said no, and now that would be the first time we're having an official.
Actually,
I'm done. Sorry.
I'll have 2 reports prepared. One that reflects the original action in September, which would be a letter of recommendation recommending denial to the city council. And then I'll have the reconsideration request, which will be a favorable report with all the components that were part of the department's information report in September, now with the changes that the petitioner has proposed. And I just want to emphasize, many of you know about our watershed erosion task force. We spent the last 3+ years recognizing that as much as we've tinkered with all the things that we thought would work, reducing density across the city. Adding the grading code, the tree preservation and restoration code, the natural resource protection standards, and again, just zoning changes not being accommodated for the most part, that at higher density than 1 unit per acre or 1 unit per 3 acres, we still have to do more, and we are. On 3 acre lots now, we're requiring stormwater management facilities. People don't understand it, but we do, because we know that Wild Horse Creek, Bonham Creek, and many of the creeks in the rural area are suffering erosion, just like Cox Creek is, which is kind of the poster child, so to speak, for the problems we face. So we are addressing them. And I can assure you, we don't consider MSD as the only set of standards. We're adding our own now based upon 3+ years of hearing from experts. And so I can guarantee you we'll have a good response for you on stormwater.
Before I come to you, one question on stormwater. What sort of elevation change is there on the site? Is it, my memory wants to say it's fairly flat, but I could be way off.
There is a bit of a rise as you go from Crestview Drive south, and then it slopes from the perspective of the Village Green site toward the southeast, and that feeds into Cox Creek watershed.
Okay, so gradual tapering to the southeast.
Topographically, these aren't bad lots, relatively speaking. McBride Homes project, that was split between Bonham and Cox Creek. So that's why they had 2 large bioretention facilities versus just 1 in this case.
Yeah, because like there's a big depression in between Maine and Manchester, especially as you get closer to the Taylor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you'll see that in the site development plans once Greenberg Development begins that process.
All right.
Well, I wasn't really, I mean, thank you for all that. I didn't, maybe I misspoke. I wasn't necessarily talking about the stormwater management because I know that you're all over that. I was just actually talking about this gentleman's property that's right next to it, just making sure that the construction doesn't affect his property. That's what I was talking about. But so I apologize if I misspoke, and I thank you for your explanation.
You did not misspeak. It's all part and parcel of one, from the simple siltation control that's required along the edge of the grading to the overall site stormwater management plan. So it's all part and parcel. So the explanation I gave to you was probably more on the general larger scale, but we'll address all of those little facets. It's up to the developer then too to follow the grading code and the permit requirements associated with it. Meaning that if there is a major storm, you check your siltation after every storm, make sure it's still functional and replace what's broken, and don't let it pile up, because the next one will push it through.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand. So TB Realty and Ben Homes is going to be a landlord to 57 rental units. Is that correct?
I believe Benton Homes will be the developer of the
Okay.
units themselves. Mr. Bosworth's role is the landowner.
And so it would be a landowner.
I've been corrected. They are partners in the project. So both will be involved.
So we have landlord, 57 tenants scenario.
Correct.
And that's part of the town center planning, that we want to have rental units in Wildwood Town Center.
The zoning ordinance is blind to the
Okay.
ownership component. We look at the type of unit, density of unit, architecture of the units, et cetera. If it's rental or not really isn't an issue that we explore.
Okay, so one of the selling points to this as presented was a HOA. How does a homeowners association benefit the city of Wildwood?
Well, for those that have been trustees or are trustees in their subdivisions, you're for our first line of defense. You address a lot of the problems before they get to us. It could be just as simple as somebody playing music too loud at night and a neighbor complains to the manager and the manager addresses it. instead of the police. It could be something as simple as lights out on the balcony that are bright and causing a problem. We go to the manager, and if there's tools in their toolbox to address it, they do. I've always considered them part of the team. They are our first line of defense.
Okay, so when we asked the questions, when we denied it originally, we found out that the homeowners association would have members that were renters, but at the end of the day, they could not vote and override the landlord. Is that still the case?
Well,
I need explanation then. Please explain.
and I can certainly get that question answered for you and still follow Robert's rules of orders with Robert's rules of order. But what I will tell you is I think from the perspective of the department, we want a simple design or simple order to the HOA, the homeowners association, meaning that the turnover will be problematic. And certainly we don't want to get calls from the two renters that are part of the HOA board saying nobody's listening to us. That's a loss. So from the perspective of the department, I would recommend that they basically, if they own them, manage them.
So would need an HOA at that point if they own them.
They need the HOA because they're fee simple lots and there's common ground and stormwater management facilities. There has to be an entity. If the entity is one and the same as the developer, great. If
Okay,
it's
I
not
got it.
for benefits that may be derived otherwise, great. But at the end of the day, they are the responsible party for maintenance and upkeep of all the private improvements as well as the public.
Okay.
Meaning stormwater and common ground, those things that you see.
So if the renters say we have a problem in common ground and things need to be updated, then it's up to the landlord to fix them. And if not, what are the repercussions? They go to the city?
Then if there is an issue like tall grass in the common ground area that's intended to be turf and usable, then yeah, the city would do an enforcement action on the owner. The code gives us latitude. It can be the occupant of the home. It can be the leasee. It can be the owner. All intents and purposes, our code just wants us to get the violation corrected.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Councilman Brost.
Yeah, I guess this is general, maybe specific at the same time, but I know this is a really difficult situation because I think it's the beginning of the change, and what the mayor mentioned and what Mr. Voon had mentioned, I agree with. And as Elizabeth worked very hard on the town center update, is that this basically is consistent with what we've talked about. And it relates back to a vote a few years back when all of a sudden it was like, you know what, we've talked about internet a long time. It's time to make a vote. It's time to move forward. And that's what we did as a city. We moved forward, and it was very expensive. It was well thought about, and we moved forward. I have this vision in my head. There's a couple reasons I got involved on city council, and now there's one that's sort of keeping me on, and it's this dead end in our city. We have a dead end. We are a city with a dead end. That, I would think, is negative. It's not positive. Now, as we move west, we want to do it right. And every project we do, we want to do better. I mean, that's our nature. We want to do better. Every project, we're always going to have questions. We're always going to have concerns. But this project, I supported it last time. I'm going to support it this time. This is consistent with our plan. And the issues and concerns that we all have is we need to have those because that's doing our job. And I expect Mr. Voonage and his team to do his job. But it's consistent with it. It's all the work that that group did. I don't know how many public hearings there were for the update committee. I don't know how many residents were involved. I don't think any residents were excluded. So it's whoever contributed to that process. But what I think what I should be doing on planning and zoning is I need to facilitate all that hard work. And I'll drift on solar panels. When the ordinance was one way, I supported it. We had a survey. I may not agree with the survey, but that was the survey. So that's what my job is to go and be consistent with that. So from getting rid of our dead end to the implications to improving the businesses in our town center, if we talk about having walkability, it's not coming from the north. It's not coming from the east. I don't think there's too much that comes from the south. But we have the opportunity moving west to really combine this together for a walkable city, which we all talk about. We've talked about having a variety of housing. Well, let's have a variety of housing. If I was investing a bunch of money in this project, I'm going to take care of it. So, I think that's common sense. So I think my perspective in supporting it, is influenced by maybe my role on the city council and the view of the entire city and the benefit that I feel, even sitting on economic development, we talk about ways to improve the business environment. I think it's rooftops. We don't want to see restaurants with the lights off. We want to see them with people. And I think we need rooftops. And I also feel having internet is just tremendous for the city. It allows people to work from home. That's a good thing. There's a lot of that going on. So, I do feel maybe maybe there's T's that have to be crossed and I's that need to be dotted and all these items, but it's a process and I think we'll get there. But I'd like to drive down Main Street all the way to 109 sometime. And I think the city, that's our plan. That's what we want to do. And it's not going to make everybody happy. So don't throw any eggs at my car. But that's what I wanted to say. So thank you for listening.
Thank you for that. And as someone who moved here for the town center, I've lived in my house for 15 years now. I've been frustrated at the lack of development between my house and City Hall. And I was excited when Wildwood Trails came in. I was excited when Main Street Crossing came in. I was excited when Canberry got finished out. I'm excited for these next couple projects. I wish there was a little more commercial, but I get it. Small commercial isn't real feasible these days. And that's why I plan on supporting this again as well.
From the comments made, the department will proceed forward and write 2 recommendations, the draft letter of recommendation for the denial that occurred in September, but also a set of recommendation with a set of conditions now reflecting the revised plan and comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay. All right, Mr. Vunich, PZ 21-23.
PZ 21-23, Elizabeth and Brian Vanderhayden, 16560 Birch Forest Drive, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011, care of BKJ Solar, 907 Harbor Oaks Court, Florissant, Missouri, 63031. A request for a conditional use permit in the R3 10,000 square foot resident district with an associated planned environment unit, PEU, for the installation of roof-mounted solar panels, which are to be so situated on the subject dwelling as to be visible from the adjoining roadway, which such being located on the south side of Birch Forest Drive, west of the intersection with Forest Leaf Parkway, street address 16560 Birch Forest Drive, St. Louis County, locator number 23V 610034. This request is being reviewed in accordance with Chapter 415.140 R3 10,000 square foot resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, which establishes standards and requirements for the installation of solar panels. The requested permit is required due to the panel's placement on the site-facing area of the dwelling's roof, thereby causing them to be visible from the adjoining roadway. This particular property is located in Ward 5, and Mr. Chair, the mayor has his hand raised.
All right, Mayor Boland.
Yes, I'd like to make a point of order and a request relative to the point of order. I believe in relation to the next agenda items relating to solar panels, all but one, and that being 23-23, I believe, have a favorable recommendation from the department. And so as long as it would be permissible, in the opinion of our city attorney, for us to handle it in this way, I think to expedite the meeting and the residents in attendance and those with the applications, I'm sorry, 22-23, that we handle everything except the solar panel item that the department has a negative recommendation on in unison, with one vote for all. So I guess the point of order would be a question to our city attorney as to whether that would be permissible.
I have no objection to that, Mayor, unless the department does.
So if I may, through the chair, Mr. Vinich, which is the item that the department has a negative recommendation as to all the solar panel items on the agenda?
As you noted, Mr. Mayor, PZ 22-23, Mr. Nearing and his wife.
Okay, so as to all the others, if there's no objection, I would recommend to facilitate the business of the commission that they be handled in unison with one vote as to all of them.
Second.
All right. All of those in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstain? All right. We'll do 21, 23, 11, and I guess
we'll come back to 22 if you don't mind, sir. And Mr. Young, can I just read the titles for the next two?
Yes, sir.
The other two that have been identified are PZ 23-23, Victoria and Nancy Cuzzolo, 1541 Clayton Woods Court, Wildwood, Missouri, 63011, care of Caitlin Blacklock, Sustainable Solar, LLC, 4521 Town Court, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304. And then the final one, PZ 11-23, Susan and John Jacobson, 1503 Lace Bark Court, Wildwood, Missouri, care of Streeb Company, 9225 Watson Industrial Park, Crestwood, Missouri, 63126.
And Mr. Chairman, I have a motion, if I may.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yep. So I would move that those that we're handling in unison as indicated by the department be approved consistent with the recommendations presented by the department.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by the mayor and a second by Commissioner Jackson. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
No, it just didn't come through on the speaker.
Okay. All right, so that motion passes. All right, so now PZ 22-23.
PZ 22-23, Lillian and Douglas Nearing, care of Caitlin Blacklock, Sustainable Solar, LLC. Mr. Chair, the department has a very brief presentation on this particular item. In discussions with the city attorney and the mayor today, the decision was made to postpone this item to allow for the petitioner and the department to consider modifications so a set of solar arrays can be installed on the home and serve the property owners. I would note that the intent of the denial related to just the configuration and the somewhat symmetry, and I think there is a solution out there that's workable for all parties. The reason the postponement would be appropriate is in approximately 1 week, the city council is scheduled to take final action on the new solar energy system regulations, which will eliminate the conditional use permit process. And then the petitioner in this case can work directly with the department. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a solution and we can authorize them without any action of the Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council.
All right, Commissioner, Mayor Bullen had his hand first and then, yeah.
I
Mayor
would make
Bullen?
a motion. Yes, I would make a motion to postpone this item to the next. So this is going to be a conjunctive motion. A motion to postpone this to the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting unless the city council passes the new ordinance relating to solar panels, in which case it will become a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Second.
Okay.
I did. And I would like to make.
Yes, sir.
So I want to make sure I got this right. Provided the city council votes in approval of the new measurements, the petitioner here, I would make a recommendation you would take them up very immediately because they're very concerned about their rebates from Ameren, et cetera. And I think you're wanting to do that, correct?
Very much so. Just as a point of reference, the city council received 4 recommendations from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding solar energy systems at its meeting in October. They waived the 15-day review. The department reviewed those 4 sets of plans in a matter of 2 days, and then ultimately sent comments to all 4 of the companies that are overseeing the installations. We've heard back from 2. We've issued 1 authorization, and the installation should be underway shortly. We'll do the same here. We want to get these out so the rebates are not voided and the people can benefit from that incentive.
So they can sleep easy, provided city council passes a new ordinance, so that you would work to get the new configurations done, right?
Very much so.
Thank
That's our
you.
intent.
All right. Any further comments? All right. Let's see. So since this was a postponement, we can just do a voice vote, I guess, right? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Fingers crossed for council. Great. Let's see here. Next on the agenda, PZ 18-23.
Just the title. PZ 18-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040.
All right. Thank Mr. Vunich. Sorry.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration the draft letter of recommendation relating to this particular item. This particular item would add a new conditional use to the non-urban resident district for agriculture, research, and development activities. We heard a number of public comments tonight about a particular application relative to this new conditional use, but this would be the first step in that process. Otherwise, the application that was at public hearing tonight could not proceed forward. The Planning and Zoning Commission, at the meeting where the department's recommendation was presented, unanimously supported adding this new conditional use. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Commissioner Helfrey.
I almost just raised my hand. Okay, so after all the comments that we had earlier, I don't disagree with this, but I guess I'm looking for a little bit of clarification, or because this says it's just getting a new, what we're saying is we're just coming up with the new description of something, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess my question is, are there rules or restrictions or laws that govern this new description then? I guess what I'm saying is, I know that you're going to tell me that they have to abide by all the laws that we already have, like the lighting and the waste and I understand that, and the trees. I understand that. But having said that, if that's the case, then why do we need to come up with this description? And does this description allow us to regulate any kind of chemical byproducts from this type of a business, or any kind of technological things that would arise from this kind of a business? Am I making sense? I just am trying to make sure that we're forward thinking with it, and I want to kind of understand how we're protecting us. Does that make sense?
Well, I think there's two approaches to this. If the Planning and Zoning Commission were to deny the request for this additional conditional use within the non-urban resident district, then the application before the commission relative to FAR greenhouse could not proceed forward. So you would eliminate that opportunity. If you were to support the new conditional use, then the process would switch then to the conditional use permit process, which does give you latitude to establish conditions relating to lighting, stormwater management, creek bank protection, tree preservation, and all of those things that were voiced as potential concerns by the surrounding community. If the conditions are developed and the applicant doesn't support them or can't meet them, then it's an obvious denial. If they say they can and ultimately are granted the permit and don't follow them, then the permit can be voided, because, as you know, we often put on these kind of uses a time frame, a renewal, so as we can make sure that the complicated components are being adhered to and they're just not let go.
Well, everybody made fun of me today walking in with my packet of stuff because I was making sure I was reading everything, but I don't recall seeing in here, does it say on the CUP how often would it be up for renewal, or is that something that we would do each individual CUP? Okay.
The latter.
That makes way more sense. I was just very confused and I didn't want to vote the wrong way. So what you just said, explain it to me, and now I understand it. So thank you.
Well, certainly you could request a postponement on this.
No, because I understand it now. I understand that it's a CUP, and my concern was that we were creating this and then there wasn't any real way to, no, it doesn't matter. I understand it now. And so thank you.
Mayor Bolin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the recommendation from the department on this item. That said, I'm a little reticent to take on a macro issue of this magnitude that seems to be directly connected to the micro issue of the CUP requests relating to the former FAR greenhouse. So I think I would make a motion to postpone this to the meeting at which time the commission addresses the CUP that's been requested. And if it's necessary, as the department has noted, to pass this item in order to do the CUP, then we could certainly at that point in time make a motion to do exactly that. The motion would be that the CUP be granted, subject to and in addition to the commission's approval of this and the city council's this new change in the city's rules. But I think baby steps, so to speak, may be more in order here. And so I would move to postpone this for those reasons until such time as we handle the CUP. And I'm confident that we can handle both items at the same time if we in fact need to do that.
100% second.
All right, Commissioner Helfrey.
Okay, so I understand that the mayor is saying to postpone this CUP, but the Solaris, that's a zoning change as it stands right now, right? It's not a CUP right now, right?
It's a conditional use permit. So
but it stands as alone from this.
Yes, they're not. One has to happen first before the other. So they are linked together, as the mayor mentioned, macro versus micro. But certainly we can arrange the agenda through the action of the commission. So as we vote on the macro first, once we have details on the micro.
Okay.
And if I may, theoretically, if Solus bought this property in Chesterfield Valley where we're zoned industrial or agricultural, they could do this without the CUP.
Well, if they purchase property in the Wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley, it's zoned industrial. So conceivably they could, yes.
Mhm. All right.
I just a quick thought.
Mhm.
So this seems to be connected. Is it connected? I mean, did you find a problem that you need this ordinance in order to regulate the CUP we may take up?
Actually, I think the approach is sound in that we use the micro to help us understand the macro, because the application will tell us if adding the use is appropriate or not. So I think they should go together.
How many businesses would this potentially affect a new ordinance?
Well, certainly when we met with
In
Solus,
Wildwood.
when we met with Solus Agra Science, we talked obviously about their goals, but in that meeting was our chair of the Economic Development Committee, our city administrator, formerly our economic development manager. And as described in the report, I think Wildwood is in a unique position. We have large acreage. We have agriculture as a permitted use. We have the opportunity to offer something no other city could in the region. So that's why I think there's merit to considering it. The department wouldn't have supported it if it didn't believe such. But I actually think the two can go together and teach us as we make these considerations.
All right. So we have a motion and a second for the postponement. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Motion is postponed. Thank you. All right. PZ 13-23.
PZ 13-23, Union Electric Company doing business as Ameren, Missouri, 1901 Shoto Avenue, MC 700, St. Louis, Missouri, 63103, care of Susan Story, Selective Solutions LLC, 340 Marshall Road, Valley Park, Missouri, 63088.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the department has provided to you an information report with recommendation regarding the desire of the applicant to install a 199-foot monopole for purposes relating to electrical service, plus the option of 2 locations by others in the area of Wild Horse Creek and State Highway T. The department recognizes that from the perspective of the city, it is limited what it can do relative to these types of requests based upon state legislation recently passed that limits the tools in the toolkit. However, as you know, too, the Planning and Zoning Commission modified our model telecommunications ordinance to mirror the state requirements as well as retain the criteria for granting a conditional use permit in the city of Wildwood. In this particular instance, the department is recommending denial of the request. Denial is premised on noncompliance to conditions associated with the new state legislation, particularly the screening and security associated with the equipment shelter area, as well as the character component. I would note that one of the other key components of the department's recommendation for denial relates to the state saying that you cannot deny a conditional use permit that would have what I would consider a negative impact on the provision of personal wireless service. And again, as we know, the primary purpose here is for Ameren, Missouri to be able to better monitor the electrical grid, as well as individual meters and et cetera. They are providing co-location, but there is no guarantee that co-location will occur from personal wireless services. And so from the department's perspective, the application is premature as well. I would also conclude by saying that if you've driven State Highway T, St. Albans Road, it is probably one of the prettier and most pristine valleys in the city of Wildwood, despite the transmission lines. When you enter onto it from Route 100, You are in a residential community. You are in one of the most scenic valleys in Wildwood. And from the perspective of the department, they still haven't finished cleaning up from their illegal activities at this stage. Is there a solution here? Probably, but at this stage, the application doesn't meet the criteria set by state legislature, doesn't meet the criteria of our conditional use permit process. More importantly, I believe we're not impacting personal wireless services at this time. Therefore, the recommendation before you tonight is a denial. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Commissioner Helfrey?
I vote that we accept the denial by the city, right? The city's recommendation of denial. Make a motion to do
All
that.
right, second by Councilman Brost. Any discussion?
I'd like to ask, is there anything you can do on the laydown yard that is kind of associated to get that cleaned up?
Well, when we had many of these discussions before the same petition, in Missouri went to our Board of Adjustment, we did give them till 2024. But I was under the assumption that the issue would be resolved before the application for a new use on a property that has an outstanding violation, so to speak. So like I say, it just seems like this is a premature application. Let's get our house in order. Let's look at the components that we've talked about and then move on from there.
So I obviously in the industry, I do a lot of fiber optics and this is private LTE. I would say for the citizens, it's really exceptional technology. It's unfortunate where it needs to be because one tower and could tell them for storm restoration, instead of being out for a week of your utility services, they'll know exactly where the problem is and they could take crews. So from the technological aspect, it's unfortunate, but all the other things leading up to your correct decision, Mr. Vunich, whether they're not ready, whether the laydown yard needs cleaned up or they need a little more time, I 100% agree. I just wanted Wildwood to understand that that is exceptional technology if they could ever find a way to make that work in a good location for all of our utility services to get restored under storms and et cetera.
Well, I would just use an example. A week ago Saturday, a car on Melrose Road hit a utility pole. Electricity went out. Calls were made. Police were dispatched. 18 hours later, it was resolved. And they knew about it almost from the instance it happened. So I appreciate the monitoring, the security of the grid, but I think there's more they can do here to make this a better site.
100% agree with you.
All right, Mayor Bullen.
Yeah, I would make a motion to just hearing the discussion. I think I would make a motion to postpone the denial for 30 days if the department thinks that's acceptable.
There is already a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is? Yeah, I'm making a motion.
That is appropriate.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So it trumps the motion on the floor. So I would be in essence postponing the motion that's on the floor, and it would be for 30 days if that's the department's. If the department thinks that 30 days is sufficient. If not, we could go up to, I guess, 2 months. But the purpose of the motion would be to do exactly what the department has indicated, which is to have more discussion. I think Mr. Benich indicated that he thinks there's a workable solution here. And, that postponement either for 30 or 60 days would allow people on the part of Ameren, people on the part of the city to meet and I would defer to the department as to who they want involved in that, to potentially work this out and come back to the commission with something other than just an outright denial. Just briefly, some history. When I first became mayor, we had a lawsuit with Ameren that was had been going on for a while that was resolved exactly in that manner. And so I think that history can potentially repeat itself, certainly on this one with no litigation involved. And so that would be my motion. And I guess before I solidify the motion, I would ask the department, is 30 days sufficient or would you need 60 days?
30 days is fine, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you say 30?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so that would be my motion, that it be postponed for 30 days to allow the city and Ameren to work collaboratively to see if this can be, amicably resolved. And if not, then the department can come back with its negative recommendation that it has tonight.
Is there a second for that motion? Seconded by Commissioner Healthfree. All right, all those in favor of the postponement, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, so motion passes with Commissioner Clayton abstaining. Next on the agenda, we have PZ 19-23.
PZ 19-23, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri, 63040.
All right, Mr. Vunich.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, in the information report, the department notes that the city attorney, along with the department and a consultant to the Department of Planning, are still working through the details of low voltage lighting, particularly some of the components now relating to light emitting diodes and the impact it's having on low voltage lighting. And so tonight, the department is respectfully requesting a postponement to allow it to meet with the consultant, allow the city attorney to do further research. And in the interim, there are a couple of examples that we've got complaints about. We're going to try to address those individually while we work on the larger issue. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Bullen. Mayor Bullen, did you have a comment?
Well, I forgot to lower my hand, but since I'm making postponements tonight, I would make a motion to postpone this as requested by the department.
All right, sounds good. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Brost. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, that is postponed. All right, let's see here. PZ 25-97, Mr. Vunich.
A request for ongoing operation of the existing telecommunications tower and facility authorized by PZ 25-97, Sprint Spectrum LP, the Marinus Retreat Center, and located in Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared a recommendation regarding the renewal of the existing conditional use permit for this telecommunication facility, as we do each year. The department did visit the site in the past few weeks and found it to be in relatively good condition. I would note that the recommendation for the renewal of the permit for an additional year does have some conditions associated with it to address some of the issues with the landscaping, the masonry block wall that provides the screen around it that needs to be addressed, and then the drive access to it also needing to be addressed. But with those conditions, the department is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission support the extension of the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Discussion or motion? Commissioner Helfrey.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Seconded by Councilman Brost. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
And Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Motion passes. All right, Mr. Newberry, PZ 5-22.
A review and consideration of a request by Jeremiah Kerberg being dated September 13th, 2023 regarding PZ 5-22, New Community Church.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the petitioner is requesting an additional 12 months to complete the site development plan process associated with the rezoning of this 4+ acre tract on Manchester Road in Town Center. As you'll recall, New Community Church purchased the property to do additional parking for their existing facility, as well as provide recreational amenities. The department is recommending the 12-month extension be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any discussion or motion? Commissioner Helfrey.
give the extension.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Mr. Newberry, PZ 28-21.
A review and consideration of a request regarding PZ 28-21 Ashley Grove Cypress Real Estate LLC. Ward 8.
All right, Mr. Devunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the developer in this particular instance is requesting an extension of time for the submittal and action on the site development plan for the Ashley Grove project. This particular project is located in Town Center and would consist of 11 new single-family detached dwellings on individual lots and the retention of one existing dwelling on a new lot. The total would be 12 lots upon the 5-acre tract of land. As the commission may recall, this particular project went through a number of discussions with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and ultimately concessions were made by the developer to address concerns by our surrounding residents. One being density, the other, the extension of the internal street between West Avenue and Center Avenue. It is now a cul-de-sac, so to speak. The department offers no objection to the 12-month extension, and therefore has a favorable recommendation before the commission tonight for action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any discussion or a motion? Commissioner Helfrey.
I make a motion to grant the extension.
All right, is there a second by Commissioner Clayton? Any further questions or discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Mayor Boland votes yes.
All right. Let's hear. Mr. Newberry, next on the agenda with 5-year capital plan.
Approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission's action upon the city's 5-year capital improvement plan as required by Chapter 89 of the Missouri Revised Statutes, which states this administrative body must review and act on this planning program so as to ensure consistency with the city's master plan, all wards.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared a favorable recommendation regarding the proposed 5-year capital improvement plan that will be before our city council at public hearing on Monday, November 13th. As is noted in the report, state statute requires any city that exercises zoning and has a master plan must review this 5-year capital improvements plan to ensure consistency. In the report, the department notes that again in 2024, it will be a busy year for the city council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the city team members, and many others. Some of the projects that have been identified include Village Green, construction of Phase 1, and design and engineering of many of the safety improvements that have been sought on State Route 100, as well as a new roundabout at State Route BA and State Route 109. Tonight, the department notes that there are many of the master plan's objectives, policies that are consistent with the action that is being presented before you tonight in terms of the plan. And therefore, the department is respectfully requesting a favorable action on the 5-year capital improvements plan of the city of Wildwood.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any questions? I did have one. So unfortunately, I don't have the list in front of me. Thank you. Appreciate that. But the J turn at Pond Road and 100, the early things I saw on that were saying that if you were coming eastbound on 100 and wanted to go north onto Pond Road, you'd have to go all the way to 109. Is that still the case?
That's correct, sir.
I'm not a fan of that. Also, if you were I'm guessing if you're on Pond Road and want to go through the intersection, will you have to, particularly northbound, there won't be any way to go straight across anymore.
Yes, the crossing at Pond Road through Route 100 is being discouraged due to safety concerns, both those that are perceived and actual. It is an area where there are a number of accidents, and given the speeds on Route 100, many of them are serious accidents. So the intent is to eliminate that crossover and make the intersection safe.
All right, so this is a concern as a cyclist. That is a very popular cycling route, and I'm wondering how bikes will be able to get across that intersection.
It's a very good question, Mr. Chair. And what I'd like to do is talk with Mr. Brown, our Director of Public Works. And if it's not been accommodated, which I'm sure it has at some level, we can certainly take it up at this stage. We're still very early in the design and engineering.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm not a big fan of what happened to 109 for bike access south of 100, particularly after after the roundabout at Main Street. All of that red concrete means there's no margin, there's no shoulder for cyclists there. And I would like to see that concrete broken up and the pavement moved over and a shoulder reestablished immediately after that roundabout.
Well, certainly for the advanced cyclist, even when we do have a paralleling trail, it's much easier to be on the roadway. What I would suggest is we did provide a trail plus a tunnel under Route 109 at Route 100 for safety of all.
I understand that. But we have a lane up until 100 and then it disappears. And like north of 100, we have both. I don't see why we can't do that south of 100.
And certainly I would defer to our Department of Public Works, but at least in this instance, we're early enough in the process with Route 100, we can discuss it.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Boland?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think on subjects like this, it's important, and I say this with all due respect to people who bike in our city and so forth. This is not a negative as to that, but I think it's important that relative to these issues, we trust the department that they are looking at things broadly and generally relative to all competing interests that could be involved, and to not let any particular personal interest interfere with that. And I'm not saying you are, Mr. Chairman, but I think what we should do, let's see what the department comes back with on it, and take it from there. But there are so many considerations that go into these intersection issues, particularly at that location, relative to cyclists and all sorts of people and things. So I would just suggest we back up and look at it on a broad level, on the basis from what is best for the city and everyone as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming the plans for that will come before us at some point, right?
Yes, as you know, the Department of Public Works submits capital improvement plans for individual road improvements to the commission for review and action.
Okay, just double checking. And I want to scan through this real quick here. Yeah, go ahead.
Did I make a motion to approve the city's recommendation for this? If I did, and I do now.
You haven't yet. All right, motion by
I just
Commissioner
did.
Helfrey. Is there a second by Commissioner Boyles? Sorry, I'm looking through this before I ask for a roll call vote. Does anyone else have any discussion?
Just as a couple of items, both in park and trail development and roadway improvements, you'll see kind of a general category. In the case of park and trail development, it's future trail development, resurfacing, repairs, etc. We always include that in case there's a connection we need to make that we've missed, or a sidewalk's been built and now we can make that connection we thought we couldn't. And then under roadway improvements, we always have small roadway improvement projects, just in the event there's a problem area that we can address. each year, whether it's a curb that extends too far out or it's a radius that needs to be addressed. So we always try to make accommodations in the 5-year plan plus the current fiscal year, be able to be a little bit more flexible and limber on how we do things.
All right. I am glad to see the Green Pines Park Connector Trail made it back in.
And that's federally funded. So that was a big win for the Department of Public Works in the city of Wildwood.
All right. All right. Commissioner Broyles.
They enjoy it.
Oh, your street's perfect to do laps on.
And it's level too.
Mm-hmm. And that's rare out here.
I'm a little bit confused.
No, vote. Just vote now. Yeah. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Broyles. This was a motion to approve.
Say it again.
It's the Ms. Helfrey made the motion to approve the department's recommendation regarding the 5-year capital improvement.
Absolutely. Yes.
Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost.
Yes.
Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Let's see here. PC 39-94, Mr. Newberry.
Recommendation of the Department of Planning upon a request to amend the approved site development plan for St. Louis County's PC 39-94, the Grover Company. Ward 8.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for you a draft letter of recommendation with information relating to the request before you tonight. The request is to authorize an amendment to the governing ordinance for this particular property to accommodate a fence in lieu of landscaping for screening purposes along the common boundary to the east of the subject site. Also, as part of the request is an amendment to the approved site development plan to accommodate the fence as well as additional clearing which has occurred. In both instances, the department was advised of these two situations, the installation of a fence in lieu of landscaping and the removal of protected woodlands by a complaint received from a neighboring property owner. Upon investigation, fence had been installed along the east boundary line and a small portion of the north boundary line or the rear of the site, and the grading and removal of the woodlands area was complete. In the review of the request by the applicants, the owners of property, the department is not supportive of the fence, nor does it feel that the additional woodland area should be endorsed, but at this stage it's been completed. From the perspective of the department, the fence in terms of its character and location is not consistent with the town center plan. It is a site-proof fence, board construction. Its opacity level near the street, Manchester Road, is significant. And from the perspective of the department, it was installed with the working side toward the neighbor versus the owner of the fence, the subject property. And from an investigation, it appears the slats were cut for a vertical installation and they're horizontal. So from the perspective of the department, nothing about the fence is consistent with town center, nor if not even in town center, it is a fence that's not very appealing for an area that is historic in nature and certainly one that has a high value along Route 66. As is noted in the report, the department believes that there is no action necessary on the part of the commission relative to the Woodlands area. We will amend the site development plan because of the work that's been done, but the amendment to the site development plan will follow the enforcement action, which will require a landscape plan be submitted. And so from the perspective of the department, in both instances, it is not as supportive of changing the governing ordinance, nor at this stage, the site development plan until a landscape plan is provided. If there are any questions, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Commissioner Helfrey?
So after dealing with Windcrest, you know that I am particularly concerned when people go in and clear stuff. And so my first question for you is for procedure. I'm not quite sure what you're asking us to do as far as the fence goes and the land clear. But my second question is, why can we not have them replant back in the area that they cleared that they were not supposed to clear, the natural area? And did they change the grading of the land? And are they going to affect the runoff of the land when they did that? Because we know that all happens.
Well, just from the perspective of the department, we received a complaint regarding the fence installation and the removal of the woodland area. The woodland area is an enforcement action, meaning we've issued a warning notice to the property owners saying that cease and desist and that restoration will be required. Once we have a landscape plan, we'll bring that bundled with the revision to the site development plan, so to speak, back to the commission. It's an amended CA plan commercial district. You as the commission must approve all changes or act upon all changes. So we're not at that stage right now to amend the site development plan. In terms of the fence, the department is recommending denial, and therefore you would be basically saying that the current condition for landscaping should not be amended. And so the motion would be to deny the request before you tonight from the applicants.
Okay, so I will make a motion to deny the request for the fence, and then you're telling us that the landscape will come back to us then.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
For a second.
Yeah, Mayor Boland?
Has the motion been seconded?
Not yet.
I will second it, and I would add as a second that I think we should fully support the department in its enforcement of what was originally approved relative to the site, as we presumably would with any other site. So I would wholeheartedly second that. Thank you.
And just one last comment. I recognize this is a small business. The owners of the business are new to the development field, but we have an approved plan. They submitted that plan for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It clearly showed the woodland area is not disturbed. In fact, there was a table showing only a few thousand feet would be disturbed, not all of the remaining area of woodlands. I appreciate the difficulty of development regulations and development in general and just all the things that go with it. But obviously it's a problem and the department can't condone the problem. Sorry.
There's a motion and a second.
Yeah.
So when we say yes, that means we're proving the denial. I want to make sure I just need to say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Not at this time, sorry. All right, we'll call vote.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Broyles,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
and Mayor Boland.
Yes.
Motion passes. Looks like we are at the end. So with that, a motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Commissioner Clayton. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. That clock is an hour fast. Oh, okay. Yeah. I know. I saw that earlier and I was like,